Welcome back to Good Sports for You, where we are talking about good sports for you. And today we are in playoff preview number 6, and we will be talking about the Chicago Cubs. Now, before we hop into the video, I want to remind you to like, comment, subscribe, do all those things. If I say something in this video that you really disagree with, comment down below. I will absolutely have a discussion with you, and I would love to, honestly. So while we're going to do this video, the way that things are going to happen is I'm going to talk about my gut reactions at first. Then I'm going to talk about the things that I like, the things that I don't like, and the things that are kind of okay. Next, we're going to go into who's in the field for them. Then we're going to the pitching rotation, the bullpen, and then I'm going to give my final thoughts, reactions, and then predictions. I will say before we hop into my initial gut reactions, as I am a Brewers fan, I'm going to try to not let my biases show through, but quite frankly, they probably will at some points. I will try to focus on the numbers. But I just wanted to give you the heads up, just so you know. So to start off, I'm going to go into my gut reactions about this team, and my gut reactions are I don't think they're going to do well in the playoffs, quite frankly. They're facing against the Padres, who are one of the best teams in baseball right now. They've been hot recently, and I just don't think the Cubs have that. And I think a large part of that is because of Pete Crow Armstrong, PCA. I'm just going to call him PCA for the rest of the video. He had such a great start to the season, and he was so good. He was an MVP caliber player, primarily because of his defense, but also his bat was like incredibly good as well. And in the second half of the season, and especially like in August, he just has not lived up to that at all. Also, you have Cade Horton on the IL, who has been one of their best starting pitchers this season. And with him out in the playoffs, I just don't see them to potentially go anywhere, maybe even make it past the first round. And also, I don't think Craig Counsell is the best manager in the playoffs. I don't think he knows how to manage a bullpen very well. And also, I don't like him. Primarily also because he left the Brewers and everything like that. But now having Pat Murphy as a manager, I just realized how much Craig Counsell was not a good manager. And it was really because the team was good that he looked so good. So I would say to the Cubs fans out there, don't trust Craig. I know that you paid him this huge, insane contract, and I don't think it's worth it. I don't think he's great. So that's just like my general gut reaction about this team right now is I don't even think they'll make it past the first round. When looking at the good about this squad, there's honestly a lot of good. So maybe I am just a hater, but there is a lot of good with this team, trust me. They're first in walks per 9. That's obviously incredible. You don't want to be allowing free passes in the playoffs. These playoff teams will take advantage of you, so they limit those free passes better than anyone. They're third in strikeout to walk ratio, and they're second in whip. Like I said, all three of those stats are fantastic for any pitching staff. You want that. That's the envy of a lot of squads. And for them to be in the playoffs and not be allowing free passes is a huge, huge deal. So I do love that for that team. When you're looking at the batting side of things, things are almost as good. They're 5th in runs scored. They're 6th in home runs, 7th in walks. They're 6th in the least amount of strikeouts. They're 6th in slugging, which all accumulates to a 7th in OPS. So you just got a solid lineup as a whole. But what I will say about these offensive numbers is some of it is a little bit overinflated because a lot of players on this team had really good first halves. So if you look at the second half stats, they're not quite as there. For example, their catcher, Carson Kelly, he had almost a 900 OPS in the first half of the season. And the second half of the season, he had around a 600 OPS. Pete Crow Armstrong, another prime example. In the first half, he had an OPS around 850. In the second half, he's had an OPS around 625. So that's a huge disparity. But as a whole, when you're looking at this whole entire lineup as a whole, and once we get down to there, I'll explain it some more. It's a complete team, and it's a complete roster, which I really appreciate in any squad. And we'll get down to there a little more because there are some qualms that I have with it, but we'll get to there at a later point. Next, we're going to look a little bit at running and fielding. They're third in stolen bases, which is great. I mean, I have said this in basically all my videos. I'm a huge fan of stolen bases in the playoffs. That's how you win on the margins. And third is great. What I will say is that is not a huge indicator for success in the playoffs. Things like home runs are way better of an indicator. But like I said, they're second in fielding run value, and they're second in outs above average. These are, again, things that clean up on the margins. You don't want to be making mistakes. You don't want to be making sloppy plays. You want to be taking advantage of these things around the margins. That's how you're going to get more runs. That's how you're going to get more outs. That's how you're going to get more wins. It's just as simple as that. So as a whole, this Cubs team does have a lot of really positives about it. But next, I want to go into some things that I just think are okay about this team. They're 9th in team ERA, and they're 11th in opponent batting average when it comes to the pitching side of things. So obviously you like that. Obviously you want those numbers to be better, but I'm not knocking them at all for that. But once again, some of these things are overinflated by early good first halves by some players. And also, Cade Horton is a major part of the starting rotation, and he isn't going to be there at all. And he's been the best ERA of any of their starting pitchers. So that is just something to keep in the back of your mind. When it comes to the batting side of things, they're 13th in batting average and they're 10th in on-base percentage. Those are okay. I think that they're good enough to get the job done because their slugging is so good that it brings their OPS to a really nice spot, so you get a really complete roster. If you're a little bit more of a traditionalist, though, I can understand how you maybe think, well, they're not that great at batting average, therefore they're not that good of a hitting team. I get that. Obviously, you want your batting average to be higher, but I'm comfortable with where it is because their on-base percentage is still just in the top 10, and their slugging is so good, which brings a complete hitting roster of a really good OPS. And then when you're looking at the base running things, they're only 10th in base running runs, which I was a little surprised by because I know that Pete Crow Armstrong is an extremely good base runner, and like I said, they're 3rd in stolen bases, so I assumed that would have been a little higher, so I was a little surprised it wasn't. But once again, top 10, I'm comfortable with that because that's enough to be a plus on the base paths. And as I said before, that's where you clean up on the margins, is these base running runs, taking the extra base, getting those stolen bases. So I'm comfortable with them in 10th because at least it's a little bit of a plus. You want it to be higher, obviously, but I think it's a real positive that it isn't in the bottom half of teams. I will say that. When you're looking at things that are bad about this Cubs team, there are a couple things that I want to highlight. The first one is that they're 27th in strikeout per nine. I just find that unacceptable. The one saving grace for them is that their defense is so good that it doesn't matter as much. But the fact of the matter is, if you're striking out guys less, more balls are going to be hit in play. More balls hit into play are going to lead to more hits, which are going to lead to more runs, and more sacrifice flies, and more everything, right? You want to be striking guys out. If they had the Phillies defense, though, I would mark it as a major concern, but because they have such a good defense, I would only mark it as just a normal concern, quite frankly. But then the other thing, which is honestly quite the opposite when it comes to their defense, is that they're 23rd in home runs allowed. So now you're taking the defense out of the equation entirely. If you have a really good defense, you want to not be giving up home runs, obviously. You don't want to be giving up home runs in general, and home runs are one of the biggest indicators for playoff teams. So the more home runs you're giving up, the worse you're going to do, obviously. And like I said, your defense is so good. Try to keep the ball on the ground. Keep it out of the air, because that's how you're going to generate those outs, and you're going to let your defense thrive. I mean, PCA, for all the knocks that I'm giving him, he is a once-in-a-generation defensive player. He is so good. Your whole entire squad is filled with defensive studs. Make sure that they're able to show off, Let them show off their range, and you're not going to do that by giving up home runs, quite frankly. And then the final piece of the puzzle that I want to note is that they're 38 and 46 against teams who are over 500. That is the worst record against teams over 500 of anyone in the playoffs. They are the only team in the National League with a losing percentage against teams over 500 in the playoffs. That is just unacceptable. And that is my biggest concern for them, is that they beat up on the bad teams, which you need to do, I'll note that, but they haven't won against the good teams. You need to win against the good teams. That's who you're going to be facing in the playoffs. And literally, you can look at any team. The Reds have a winning record against teams who are over 500, and the Cubs don't. And it's not oh, well, it's just one game under. It's 38 to 46. That is a significant chunk of games that you're down against teams who are over 500. You just cannot have that for any playoff team, and that is my number one chief concern for this squad. When you're looking at this lineup, it's a pretty potent lineup. Over at catcher, you have Carson Kelly. Now, like I said before about Carson Kelly, he had a fantastic first half of the season, but he has slowed down a ton. So that's definitely something to keep an eye out for. I mean, his OPS dropped 300 points from the first half to the second half. I mean, you can't have that when you're looking to compete for the playoffs, to compete for the World Series, which is really what this team is trying to do. Over at first base, you have Michael Busch, who's been one of their most consistent bats this entire season. And he kind of came out of nowhere. I know he's been solid in the past, but this year he has 4.5 WAR. That's awesome. He has a 971 OPS in September, so he's getting right at the right time. Over at second base, you have Nico Hoerner. I am a Nico Hoerner fan. I will say that. I'm a Nico Hoerner defender. He has a 6.1 WAR. He's one of the best defensive gloves that you're going to see. He's about an average bat, but that's all you need when you're so good defensively at second base. I'm a huge Bryce Terang fan with the Brewers, and Nico Hoerner is doing just as good, if not better, defensively than Bryce Terang is, which is something to say because Bryce Terang just won the Platinum Glove. Over at third base, you have Matt Shaw, and I don't have a ton to say about him. He's a rookie, and he's been good. He's been very quality for them. The bat has been about league average. You want a little bit more out of third base, but the defense has been good. The bat has been good enough, so I'm fine with that there. And like, if that's the weakest spot in your lineup, that's okay, cool. You know, I think he has a 98 OPS plus, so he's about league average. If that's your weakest spot, you're fine. You're chilling right now. Over at shortstop, you have Dansby Swanson. I think everyone at this point knows what Dansby Swanson is going to do. He's going to play great defense, and he's going to play a quality bat. Like, he's going to be slightly above league average, maybe slightly below, depending on the day that you get him. But then also, like, the glove will always be there. And that up-the-middle duo of Nico Horner and Dansby Swanson, like, nothing is going to get through that. That's so good defense. I mean, that's part of the reason that their fielding run value is so high and their outs above average are also so high. Over in left field, you have Ian Happ. Again, another guy. He's just consistently good. He's going to be above league average bat. He'll be in that range of like 115 to 125 OPS plus, and he's also a good defender. He has a good arm over in left field. So it's like you like everything about him there. Over in center field, you have PCA. You have Pete Crow Armstrong, somebody who we've highlighted a lot during this segment today. And he is good. He is very talented, right? He's one of the best defensive center fielders that I've ever seen. He's making like these crazy layout plays that are just fantastic. He runs the bases well. He does all these things really well. My thing is his bat is just so inconsistent. Like I said, the first half of the year, he was incredible. He had an 847 OPS. An 847 OPS with that kind of defense that he was playing, he was leading the league in WAR. I mean, he had a legit chance to finish top 2, top 3 in MVP, maybe even win it if he really turned it on in the second half. And that did not happen at all. In the second half, he's down to a 624 OPS. And that included an August slump where his OPS was in the 4s. In the 4s. For your star player who's supposed to be in MVP talks? No shot, right? And then in September, he's had a 646 OPS. So, I mean, an upgrade from August. But if that's your upgrade, what's your baseline at? It's so frustrating to see a player who's so talented just struggle. And like, I wish him the best. Obviously, like, I'm not here to knock on any players and like wish them ill. He's an uber talented player, so I hope that he finds a way to turn it on. Obviously, I hope that he doesn't turn it on against the Brewers, but I hope that he finds a way to find some consistency, because it's so frustrating as just a fan of the game to see somebody go from the highest highs to some of the lowest lows offensively that I have ever seen, quite frankly. And then over in right field, you got somebody who's maybe not going to experience that much, and that's Kyle Tucker. He's a consistent bat. He was with the Astros. He was phenomenal with the Astros. Got sent over to the Cubs, and he's been very good there. He's been a very quality guy. My one thing to note about him, though, is he is back from the injured list, and he just got back. He was dealing with I believe, a calf injury, and those are always kind of tricky when it comes to like running and stuff like that. So I know that they were trying to take it slow, but now you're in the wild card series. And it's win or go home after a couple games. It's one series, and that's all you got to play with. So that's not a lot of time for him to get back to full health. So that is just something to like keep a mental note of. At DH, you have Seiya Suzuki. He's been fine. Like he's been a decent bat all in all. He can play some right field as well. So if Kyle Tucker can't man right field, he can do that. And he's been fine. There isn't a lot to talk about him, honestly. He's a plus bat, and I know that he's been pretty good down the stretch, which you like, obviously. The one thing that I will say about this team is the bench is like shallow. Like, I was looking at it, and it is basically like all these guys who I just mentioned in their starting lineup have basically played every single game for them. And the one guy who's been their bench piece, I guess, who's kind of bounced around a little bit, has been Justin Turner. He's played some third base and some first base. And I like that for them because Justin Turner is this guy who brings a bunch of playoff experience. I mean, his time with the Dodgers, like, it is uber playoff experience. If he can be that clubhouse guy that they need, like, that's a huge plus, especially because you got some young guys who don't have any playoff experience, like PCA, Matt Shaw, both don't have, I think, any playoff experience. And I don't think Michael Busch has a ton either, if he has any. You got some guys with playoff experience. You got Kyle Tucker in there, but Justin Turner, I think that's a huge plus. You have somebody who knows how to win championships. And what I will say, aside from Kyle Tucker, like I said, he's back from the IL, is they are fairly healthy. They don't have any guys that I noticed that I was like, oh, like that's a big knock. Like the Dodgers had Will Smith out. Bo Bichette was out for the Blue Jays. It's like those guys are big knocks to the lineup. This Cubs team doesn't really have that. They're running at good strength in terms of their lineup. You're looking at this rotation, though, and I will say it is not as shored up as this lineup is. I'll tell you that. You have Matthew Boyd, you have Colin Ray, you have Shota, and you have Jameson Tyone. Who's your guy? Like, who's your number one? Is it Matthew Boyd? He's been probably your most consistent guy all year. Well, he has a 5.31 ERA in September. That's pretty worrying. Is it Shota? He finished in Cy Young voting last year. He has a 6.51 ERA in September this year. That's not good. Is it Colin Ray? Colin Ray's had a 2.63 ERA in September. But if you look at his numbers for the whole entire season, they're not that solid. And for the career, they're pretty league average at best. You have Jameson Taillon. He has a 1.54 ERA in September. That's also fantastic. But guess what? He doesn't have an ERA that's below 3.20. None of these starters have an ERA that is below 3.20. The only guy who had an ERA that I would have considered even close to ace level was Cade Horton, and he's hurt. You're going to be without him for at least the wild card series. I just don't know what they're going to do. The rotation does not seem solidified enough at all to make a deep run and even win the first series. I don't see a path with the rotation that seems this weak and where your guys have been struggling. And then when you're going to go over and you're looking at the bullpen, I mean, it's solid. You have Brad Keller, who's had a 2.07 ERA. You have Caleb Thielbar, who has a 2.64 ERA. You have Drew Pomeranz, huge Drew Pomeranz fan, huge fan of what he does. Once again, former Brewer, wish that we still had him. You know, he can go out and chuck for you. He's had a very quality season. So Drew Pomeranz, you're looking good over there. And then you have Daniel Palencia, who's your closer, and he's been pretty quality too. So as a whole, like the bullpen is very quality and very solid. But if we're looking at this team as a whole, you got some really good things that you like about it. Your lineup is quality, although it is dipped down in the second half, but as a whole, it's good, and they play fantastic defense, and they can run the base as well. You'll like that in your squad. The pitching staff, when you're looking at the season as a whole, has been quality, but when you look at the more recent numbers, you see a lot of issues. And with Cade Horton gone, that is a huge, huge hole in that rotation. When you're looking at the bullpen as a whole is pretty solid, and I really like that, especially because in the playoffs, teams are going to try to shorten games. They're going to try to get your starters out quicker, and quite frankly, with the starting rotation that they have, that's going to happen. So the two big questions are, can this team advance to the World Series, and can this team advance in the playoffs at all? And my answer to the first question is no, absolutely not. I do not see them winning the World Series or even making the World Series. I don't think that's a world that it'll happen. I could see them advancing. I know that I was a hater early on in the video, but when I've looked at some of the numbers more, I could see there's a definite chance that they could beat the Padres. I think once they reach the Brewers, I think it'll be much tougher. But because they're facing the Padres at home, I think they have a much better chance. My big thing is PCA has really struggled, and PCA is such a pivotal part of this team. The rotation, I don't think, is good enough. I don't think that Craig Counsell is a great manager in the playoffs. And the Padres are really hot right now. And also the Cubs do not have a winning record against teams over 500. That is the biggest thing. They have a solid losing record against teams who are over 500. So they have shown that they can't get it done against the good teams. And you're only going to be facing the good teams in the playoffs. But that's all I got for you right now. If you enjoyed it, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. If you disagreed with me, if you think the Cubs can go all the way, make sure to comment down below and we can have a discourse. We can have a discussion about it. But that's all I got for you. Thank you for listening to Good Sports for You, and I'm out.